This mode sets up the matrix for controlling global properties, and you get to determine what properties you'll control as well as what LED colors the buttons will use. In this way, you can create layouts that make sense for your workflow and that are easy for you to remember. And these can be as simple or as complex as you like. I'd recommend starting out with just a few assignments, getting comfortable with those, and then adding more. As a side note, this mode is a great example of how Arsenal allows you to define your own workflow. Aside from allowing you to decide the properties to control, you also get to decide how to access this mode. One very useful way is to access it momentarily. So for example, here I'm in session mode, where I can launch clips and scenes. I can momentarily switch to global user mode to trigger some global property, such as stopping playback, and then I can fall right back into session mode. Let's take a look at the assignment options you have in this mode. Here we have transport, tempo, cue, and view related assignments. Here's an example of settings that use those assignments. These allow me to start and stop playback, toggle session record, nudge the tempo up or down, jump between cues, and control views. Here we have assignments related to the selected clip and selected scene. Here's an example of settings that use those assignments. This allows me to launch or stop the clip, toggle its loop, delete it, and launch the selected scene. Here we have assignments related to the current track. Here's an example of settings that use those assignments. Now I can mute, solo, and arm the track, control its monitoring status, and control its crossfade assignment. Here we have what are called special assignments, and these work in conjunction with each other. The most important assignments here are the multi-scroll assignments. These can perform different actions depending on what other buttons are pressed. Here's an example of settings that use those assignments. By default, the scroll buttons will control tempo in 1 BPM increments. When shift is held, they'll control tempo in 1/10 of a BPM increments. Pressing this button will toggle fixed length recording on or off. When held down, the scroll buttons will control the fixed recording length. When pressed quickly, this button will toggle global quantization on or off. When held down, the scroll buttons can be used for adjusting the global quantization value. When pressed quickly, this button will toggle record quantization on or off. And when held down, the scroll buttons can be used for adjusting the record quantization value. Here we have global and record quantization assignments, as well as crossfader assignments. Here's an example of settings that use those assignments. Here I can select the global quantization value. On the next row, I can control the record quantization value. And with the last row, I can control the crossfader. And lastly, we have other assignments that don't fit in any other category. Here's an example of settings that use those assignments. With these, I can undo and redo and stop all clips. In addition to all the assignments we just looked at, this mode can also trigger CliffX actions. If you're not familiar with CliffX, you can download it and find more information about it on our forum. Here's some example CliffX assignments. With these, I can add an audio track, load autofilter onto the track, randomize autofilter's parameters, and reset them to their default values. The arrow buttons are used for basic navigation, and the matrix accessory buttons are used for controlling cue volume.